Natalie Davis, your host of the Untold Miracles podcast, and today I am so excited for our special guest. He's a famous Canadian comedian, actor, voiceover artist. He has a star on Hollywood's Walk of Fame. He's the host of Dill or No Dill on Wednesday nights on CNBC, and he's a judge on one of my favorite TV shows, America's Got Talent. He knows how to pick talent when he sees it. He gave golden buzzers to two of my dear friends in Miracle Kids, Angelica Hill and Christian Gordino. Mr. Howie Mandel, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Please sit down. That's not necessary.
I am so excited. You're so busy, and I really appreciate you making the time to be on the show today. I'm a huge fan of yours. I actually had the opportunity to meet you after one of Angelica's performances, and I got to give you a fist bump. And I love watching you on the show, and congratulations on being the longest-standing judge on the show.
Thank you. Being the longest-running judge on the show. Thank you. I am the oldest. But more importantly, it's not about the judging. It's about the talent. And you guys, the Children's Miracle Network kids, have really outshone many, many other people, twice their age, twice their experience. And when you think of Angelica or you think of Christian, they just blow my mind. And I think they not only changed their lives, but changed our lives forever.
And Christian, talked to him today. He said to tell you that he misses you so much and wanted me to give you a big hello.
But both those kids are much more than talented.
And I don't know if you know, but Christian just came out with a new song called Waiting. It's the first song he's ever written. He produced it with country artist Hunter Hayes, and it's amazing. I think it's going to be a hit song, and his story is incredible. He's a miracle. Angelica Hill, she nearly died, got a transplant from her mother. She's doing great today, and as you know, you just saw her on the AGT Best Of show, and she killed it again.
Oh, always. She always delivers. Both of them are superstars.
They are. So you're also tied to one of our other miracle kids. I met this kid 23 years ago. His name's Josh Sundquist, and he's a one-legged comedian. He lives in Santa Monica, and he's friends with your son, Alex.
Oh, I know who that is.
Yeah, and they've been to a couple of your shows in West Side Comedy Club where you've performed.
Yeah, that's where I always drop because I live in the Santa Monica area, so I drop by there, and that's where I write. I have also a stand-up comedy special that you can download. Go to my website and you can get it. But I should say that if you're fans of Angelica or Christian and you love these good family entertainment shows that I'm on, you may not want the kids to watch my stand-up because I don't edit myself.
This is the first stand-up comedy show you did in 20 years, and it was the Howie Mandel Presents Howie Mandel at the Howie Mandel Comedy Club in Atlantic City. I want to know what it was like after 20 years being up on stage and doing that show.
No, I'm always on stage. I'm always doing stand-up, and I still do over 100 live dates a year, but I have not recorded a special. I had done about 10 cable specials throughout the 80s and 90s.
Oh, okay.
And then I just stopped doing it, and I realized that with all the exposure on America's Got Talent and Deal or No Deal, there's a whole generation that has no idea that I do stand-up, even though I do it. But they, and even though I'll drop into almost every city and play the theaters or wherever I'm playing or the schools or the casinos or wherever, still I haven't been on television. So people constantly are coming up to me and saying, I used to love your stand-up, or you should do stand-up again. But I always did. So when the Hard Rock opened the Howie Mandel Comedy Club, I just used that as an opportunity to go in because I was going to be there for the opening and put it down on tape. And now it is a comedy special.
Well, Howie, on this show we talk about miracles. And I want to know, would you say making it in show business and comedy is a miracle?
Well, I think every day is a miracle, and then when you meet the people that I meet on America's Got Talent, and, when you talk about Christian and you talk about Angelica, people always say, what are you looking for? And I always look to be surprised. And, when Angelica opened her mouth, and the same thing with Christian, I was surprised because they don't look like this kind of, first of all, how old, based on their age, that they would have this kind of poise and fearlessness to be out in front of millions of people and just belt it out like somebody who's been in the business, decades longer than them. That's number one. Number two, as somebody once said, a lot smarter than me, 99% of making it, and whether that's show business or whatever you're doing, making it is just being able to find whatever your passion is showing up. And I think that all our lives, we spend more time overthinking and finding excuses, and maybe there are excuses for not showing up. And when you look at these kids, especially these two, when you go, talk about an excuse to not show up, talk about an excuse where you don't even think you're going to maybe even be alive, And then not only are you alive, but you're inspiring life itself and everybody watching itself. Those are the miracles, and that's what's amazing. More than just entertaining people, if you could give somebody, and I think that's what happens, and that's what I read on all my Twitter and Instagram when they see these people, and after I've given them a golden buzzer, people are not only entertained by them, but they're inspired by them, and they move forward, and then it puts all their trials and tribulations into perspective, and we realize that, a lot of people have a hard time in life, and it's kind of what you make of it and how you cope with it.
On a recent podcast, you said everything that you were punished for or expelled for growing up, you're now getting paid for today.
The truth of the matter is I tell these stories now and it makes me seem like maybe I was funny or witty, but I wasn't, and I was a pariah, and nobody, I didn't have a lot of friends growing up, and I got diagnosed later in life with my ADHD and my OCD and my anxiety and depression. So I just kind of act impulsively and do things. I wanted to get out of swimming because I was I grew up in Canada. It was cold, and the swim class was at the end of the year. So I did, and my plan alone, it was just about me and not to be funny. I threw a chocolate bar in the pool so it would look like something else at the bottom of the pool. But when everybody showed up at the end of the day to see who had ruined the pool,
it wasn't so funny.
And they were all pointing out that little brown thing at the bottom of the pool. I dived in and came up with it in my mouth. And the thing is, well, you laugh now, but I was people thought of me as the most disgusting person they'd ever had in the school. I was asked to leave the school. I didn't have a friend in the world. It's a funny story now, but I was a mess. But now it's a funny story, and now it fits into my career, and now I've made it work for me.
Well, you also have a very funny story of how when you were at school, you hired a contractor, but you were the one that made the call, not the school.
Right, but I made the call, and I didn't tell any friends, and there was somebody out there measuring and going to give a bid, and then the principal went out to find out who this man was in the field measuring and what he was measuring for and who authorized it, and I'd given my name. And I got called into the office because apparently you're not allowed to hire somebody to put an addition onto the library.
I want to know, Howie, were there any miracles when you walked on that stage at Yuck Yuck's Comedy Club when you took a dare from a friend? And what might have happened if you didn't take that dare?
I wouldn't be talking to you today. As kids, we're very impulsive, and we do things that we want to do, and we don't know why. And the truth and the purity, when you look at people like Angelica or Christian or me, just as in that moment, I really was not planning on having a career. But I live by the adage that Nike has made famous of just do it. And the point is that Angelica Hale just sang, and then you go, oh my God, listen to that voice. She deserves to be heard by millions, and she ends up on AGT. And I, showed up on stage, and I was like a little crazy, and this bad behavior got me asked back the next night, and then the next night, and one thing leads to another, and I have a career in comedy where everything that was considered, and the same thing is, Christian, who had so many blocks in front of him, roadblocks, where he couldn't see, and
he regained his sight thanks to a gene therapy program, trial treatment.
And that's fantastic, but besides his health, his just his passion in life, his music, and he pursued it. And millions upon millions of people around the world have had the opportunity to hear it because they didn't say, you know what, I have these issues to deal with, that's really not for me, which I think most people would say.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think it's interesting, too, how you choose to show up. You mentioned that you have ADHD and OCD and mysophobia, where it's just a fear of germs. And you battle this every day, but you continue to show up for others, for yourself, and it's amazing to me. What would you say to those people that are really struggling? Because for me, I've had a 20-year battle with anxiety and depression, and I have OCD as well, not as severe as you. I actually dig holes in my face with tweezers. I've done it for 20 years, and I can't stop doing it. I have to walk on the right side when I walk on the sidewalk, just little things, but I'm high functioning, but it affects me on a daily basis. How do you make it work for you?
Well, first and foremost is what you just did, is talking about it, which kind of removes the stigma, and you could reach out and talk to people and get help, and whatever works for you, the idea is that you just have to work on it. Whatever it is, just have humility and humanity and just face it and have no embarrassment about it. Just take care of it. And that's the key. I think a lot of people have issues they just don't take care of.
I was surprised when reading about you. I mean, I think it's well known that you have OCD and that you don't shake people's hands because of the mysophobia. But I would love for you to share the experience that happened to you when you were young with the sandfly and how this all came about.
Oh, nobody knows for sure where, I've constantly been asked, like, when did this start? And, I have no recollection of when it exactly started because it's the only way I've ever been. But there is a story about when I was younger, and some of my therapists and psychiatrists thought that this may have been a trigger just for the mysophobia part of it, which is just the fear of germs. And that's, I got bitten at 4 or 5 years old by a sandfly on the beach, and we didn't know, and it laid its larva under my skin. And I got these bumps that looked and were itchy like mosquito bites. And when I would scratch them, under my skin, you could actually watch them in real time crawl away. So I had these things crawling under my skin that eventually had to be burned and rubbed and cut out and opened. So I had all these creepy crawlers under my skin, which I can remember like it was yesterday, and I don't know. There's no, theoretically, this kind of catapulted me into this fear of touching things and getting that. But, I don't know for sure. But I was traumatized and probably still dealing with those kind of things today.
So the biggest advice that you have for someone today is just to talk about it.
Well, yeah, and there's always, and there isn't one answer, and that's the key. That's why I don't talk about what medication I'm on or where I go, because we're all different, And the point is, and I'll tell you this, that I've gone and talked to a therapist or psychiatrist, and it's worked, and then for whatever reason, there's, and then it didn't work. So I had to find somebody else, or I had to switch medication, or I had to try something completely new. There isn't one answer to everything, and that goes for physical health, mental health, humanity, growing. There isn't one way toward success. There's not one way. But, as somebody said, the people that lose, and I'm talking about whether it's your life, whether it's your health, or whether it's your career, the only difference between winning and not is the person who loses gave up.
We treat 10 million kids each year at our 170 children's hospitals, and that's what they teach me every day. They persevere, they're resilient, they get out of bed when they don't want to get out of bed. They show me how to show up, and I'm just so grateful for that in my life. I want to talk to you about your book, Here's the Deal, Don't Touch Me. What would people be most surprised to learn about you, outside of the fact that you opened for Diana Ross and you were the voice of Gizmo in the Gremlins?
And Animal, and Skeeter, and Bunsen Honeydew, and Muppet Babies. I don't know that there's anything surprising that I have not talked about even here, except that maybe my personal struggles and how each and every day. It's really hard because when you are a comedian or known as somebody that's silly and funny, then people have a tendency not to take whatever issue I bring up personally as a joke, and the truth is that even my inability to shake hands and that is a constant struggle minute to minute. So I think they'd be surprised at how much of a struggle it is, but everything is. I'm learning that everybody's got their cross to bear. Everybody's got their struggle. Everybody deals with whatever they deal with. And the difference between the people who are healthy and successful is that they have been able to deal. I don't think anybody gets through this life without a struggle.
It's almost the beautiful part of life, too. It's what comes out of that refining fire is really, I think, what makes life sweet.
Yes.
So I have a couple quick fire questions for you before we end. I know we are running out of time. I want to know your most memorable act of all time on AGT. It can be good or bad.
Right now, I think that Courtney Hadwin, who was my golden buzzer right before Angelica Hale, who was this little 13-year-old girl who has a lot of social anxiety and can barely talk, and then bang, as soon as the music started, she became Janis Joplin, and I thought that was a surprise.
She was so unbelievable.
Yeah, but if you go on YouTube, there's I think it's like 500 million hits across all the platforms. It just broke every record, and people share it even today. So if you go Courtney Hadwin, Howie Mandel's Golden Buzzer, it's just a great moment.
The biggest life lesson that you have learned from comedy?
Comedy's subjective, and so is life. You learn that your perspective from comedy, that whatever you think, even if you think something's funny, if you think something's beautiful, if you think something's entertaining, if you think something's, that we're all different and we all see things differently. Nobody sees things exactly like you. So just don't try to please everybody because you can't, and just try to please yourself. And that's what I say, like even and maybe that's what the youth and people like Angelica Hill and Christian, they don't have anybody else to compare themselves with that's like them, that have gone through whatever they went through, but they just own it. And that's what people respond to. Is just that joy of owning, of being in the moment. And you'll find the difference between them and other people, and whether it's comedy or whatever it is, just even in life, people that are trying to please other people or doing what they think other people will like, there's not an authenticity, or it's not authentic, and people just subliminally know that. So whoever goes after whatever they go with such gusto and that's why people respond to children. You watch somebody who's in their world of make-believe, there's such joy, and it's so contagious just to see somebody enjoying and just wrapped up in their own little world. And if they're having that much joy, it just pulls you in. And that's what these young people that show up on the stage do. And then when you watch somebody a little bit older, they make choices that are maybe, and you can even see that with young people whose parents have made choices for them. You know what I mean? That doesn't sound like you love the song as much as, well, who made you sing that song? And we find out their mom made them sing that song. Well, maybe if you were true to yourself, we would have felt better.
Right. Who's the comedian that has most inspired you?
Richard Pryor.
Your favorite stage to perform on?
Any place with a microphone and a light. Any place. That's my favorite place to be in the world.
The most intimidating person you've ever performed for?
My in-laws.
Speaking of your in-laws, you've been with your beautiful wife for, is it 40 years now?
Yes.
What's the key to successful marriage?
She will say it's the fact that I travel so much, because she says the more I'm away, the more she loves me.
I want to know the biggest miracle that's ever happened in your life.
My children.
Your 3 beautiful children. You have 2 daughters.
And grandchildren.
Oh, you do? You have grandkids? How many?
I have 2 grandkids.
Congratulations. And the last question that I ask my guests is, if there were 3 miracles that you could create in the world today, what would that look like for you?
Health, happiness, and peace.
I love it. Those 3 things kind of take care of everything and make this world like a beautiful, better place to live. Well, I want to thank you so much, Howie, and I want to give a shout out to Toronto, where you're from. I know you do a comedy festival there, and our children's hospital is there. Sick Kids in Toronto is one of our amazing hospitals, and we're just so grateful for all you do, Howie, to make this world a better place.
Thank you so much.
May is for Miracles at Costco. Throughout May, members can help kids treated at their local CMN hospital by purchasing a miracle balloon at any register. You can also recognize the wonderful moms in your life at Mother's Day or military personnel during Memorial Day by buying a balloon in their honor. All donations will help kids in your community live better. Thank you.